What's a deeply unsettling fact? Story 1. Google your state, province, country missing persons, and you'll probably find a list that's much longer than you think it will be. Then consider that most of these cases have been investigated thoroughly and gone cold. That could be you or a loved one one day, and the chances of the media scooping up your story and publicizing it far and wide really aren't that great. You or a loved one could vanish, and very few people would know or care. That, and that there are 25 to 50, or possibly as many as 2,000 active serial killers in the US right now. Story 2. Theoretically, there is no upper limit to an earthquake, but somewhere around 11 the Earth would likely split in half. Thank you, Nova, for making me curious enough to Google that. Story 3. There are more bacteria cells in you than there are you cells in you. In fact, there are about 10x more bacteria cells in you than your own cells. By number only, you are actually bacteria. By weight, the bacteria collectively only weigh a few pounds. Story 4. Even traveling at close to light speed, the average human simply wouldn't live long enough to see more than a tiny fraction of the universe. Story 5. Yellowstone is a huge volcano that will eliminate everyone in the Quad State area when it blows and buries most of the US in several feet of ash filled with tiny glass-like particles that eliminate when inhaled. Answer. I always laugh when people act like this is a problem unique to those living in the western US. Oh man, you guys in the Quad State area are so dead. If that thing blows, 99 of humans will be dead within the ensuing years to decades of eternal winter with global crop failures and ensuing wars over scarce resources. You'd probably be better off dying in the initial blast rather than starving to passing while watching helplessly as all of modern society crumbles and burns to war and famine. Story 6. In 150 years, no one you see walking the earth now will be walking it anymore. In that time, a population of 7 billion people will replace itself with more to spare. Edit. A lot of you are pointing out the first person to live to 150 has been born. I agree with you, so, well, call it 200 years instead to be on the safe side. Story 7. The fact that there's people out there that are probably kidnapped and hidden anywhere for a long time, and we are just living normally. The more unsettling fact is that the kidnapper is probably someone we know but never thought to investigate. Also the fact that there are so many people who have died but doesn't have an identity name. Story 8. HIV and a lot of other diseases don't eliminate you because they're good at their job. They eliminate you because they're notoriously bad at it. It can't copy itself worth shoot, so it's in a constant state of mutating. It's almost impossible to cure because chances are it's becoming immune to a new medicine every minute. Story 9. When the oldest person in the world was born, there was an entirely different set of people on this planet. Story 10. Unless you greatly impact the world and its citizens, the memory of you will vanish in just a few generations after your passing. Sleep tight. Edit. I've never read so many, well, actually, and you need to comments in my life. Thanks for the giggles and head shakes, dudes and dudettes. Story 11. Approximately 10 of the population has an IQ below 80. That IQ is so low that the US Army won't take them because it has no use for them. We don't know what to do with these people, and they're going to be the first and hardest hit by automation when it really takes off. Story 12. Brain aneurysms are unpredictable, could happen to anyone of any age, race, gender, intimacy orientation, social class, etc., and are basically an insta-eliminate. Your only hope of surviving one is that doesn't fudge up too much of your brain at once, and that it doesn't pop in a supercritical spot in your brain. And that's just so you can survive long enough to get to the hospital. Most people just drop dead immediately. Either way, your life will never be the same. Nothing you can do to prevent it. No food or substances or lifestyle choice. It could come completely out of nowhere. Having intimacy. Writing a note while driving, mid-sentence. It could come while you're doing anything, even in your sleep. Maybe even tonight. Answer, mid-sentence. That very thing happened to my dad. He was told he stopped talking and just stared into space mid-sentence. Luckily, the persons he was addressing at the time were his fellow surgeons during a department meeting at the hospital, so they immediately sprung into action, packed him up, and wheeled him over to neurology. He was operated on within few hours and made a full recovery. That was unfortunately negated by complications few months later. He's still alive, but worse for wear. Story 13. Some names in an immigrant logbook from the 1700s and 1800s belong to someone whose only evidence of their existence is that ink on paper. If they never had children, their legacy is over, and they will be forever forgotten when that book is destroyed. Story 14. If you remember seeing Halley's Comet the last time it was visible, you probably won't be alive for the next time. Story 15. Harlequin ichthyosis is a real disease that children suffer and have always suffered from. Thanks to modern medicine, it's survivable but still so sad. Story 16. 1 in 3 women will lose a child. Edit. I don't know if these replies are just stupid or inconsiderate, but it's not a joke when your kid dies. Story 17. When I lie awake at night thinking about life and passing, and realize that neither one particularly appeals to me. Story 18. Men who experience domestic violence from a woman are 25 more likely to be arrested than the women are. Answer. My dad's girlfriend beat him TF up and called the cops, claiming he beat her, but the town basically knows she was like this, and when the cops came, they arrested her. My dad has scratches and bruises, and she was fine. She scared me so bad as a kid. Every time I look back at this, I'm thankful people knew about her situation, because they could have arrested my 66th day. She was this 54 monster. Story 19. The idea that there is an acceptable amount of rat feces and bug parts in our store bought and packaged foods. Apparently, peanut butter has the highest amount of these extra ingredients. Story 20. We eliminate significantly more animals per year via animal agriculture than the number of humans that have existed ever. Edit, typo. Story 21. Because of the expanding universe, even if space travel were possible, there would be a point in time where we could travel forever and never reach a destination. Story 22. Sadly, David Attenborough probably won't be the narrator of Planet Earth 3. Edit. I guess I succeeded at unsettling some of you. Story 23. You're not sitting right. Edit. For those that don't get the joke, I made you check, thereby unsettling you. Story 24. Everything is mostly empty space. I know that's a fact you hear often, but never really get a good perspective on. Let's take us for example. We are humans. We are made of various organ systems, blood vessels, nerves, etc. But those are all made of cells. Those cells are in turn made of smaller parts. Those smaller parts are made up of atoms. If we took an atom and blew it up to the size of an American football field, the nucleus would be the size of a flea on the 50-yard line. Its outer electrons would be orbiting at each end zone. Now on the macro scale, we live in buildings, in cities, in states, in various countries, on various continents, on the planet Earth. the place we call home. Most nights we can look up and see the moon. We all know it. We all think it's at least a little cool. It's up there, being rad, doing its own thing. 238,900 miles, 3,4472.282 kilometers for you metric folks, away. That's about 10 times the circumference of our planet. Mars is a pretty awesome place. It's inhabited entirely by robots. Also, it's 33.9 million miles away. The nearest star is our sun. Most of us like the sun. It's up there, giving us warmth, light, and a sweet spot in the galaxy to orbit. So we don't fly out into the cold, cast, uncaring vacuum of space, 93 million miles away. Let's take this even further. Fudge the solar system. We're too familiar with it. It's old hat. It's familiar, frankly. We need something new to look at. Something that might put on some lingerie and show off those nice gams for us. Let's take a gander at Andromeda. It sounds sexy, like a science-themed stripper. How far away is that naughty broad? 2.5 and 37 million light-years. Think if it this way. If you were to take a photo of it through a telescope, the light that struck your camera sensor originated there. During the Paleolithic era, when we were first making stone tools. Oh, one more thing. Between our planet and the moon, we could fit every other planet in the solar system. We are incredibly small and insignificant in the eyes of the universe. But to someone, you are more important and impressive than any of the things I mentioned. To them, you are the universe. Story 25. The amount of children all over the world who get violation or molested daily. It's just really fudge up. Story 26. The oldest woman who ever lived was like 122 years old, and she met Vincent van Gogh when she was 13 and died in 1997. Story 27. There is a super intelligent, immortal snail that has $1 million, and it is trying to touch you. Story 28. No matter what or who you think is causing climate change, it's still happening, and a lot of people will die because of it. Story 29. You have no idea of anything that has ever happened in history. You only believe what other people who also don't know tell you. Story 30. We are currently due a mass extinction event, and using the scale, severity, and frequency of such events documented throughout Earth's history, there's a very good chance this one's not going to be pretty. Story 31. Let's assume, of the 20 million subs on this subreddit, 10K people are reading this post. According to the world passing rate, chances are almost 2 people that have read this post will die within the next 7 days. Story 32. No one knows for sure what happens after passing. Even the people who have died for a couple of minutes and came back to life and claimed they saw Jesus, in reality their brain filled up the time lost after it was shut down with their own beliefs of religion. Answer. What really freaks me out is realizing I just started remembering stuff one day as a child. There was nothing before, but it doesn't seem weird. Trying to imagine my lights going out as they were before I was conscious overloads my brain. It would be fantastic if there was some kind of place your consciousness continued on to, but I personally doubt it. Just because I can't fathom non-consciousness doesn't mean it can't happen. Story 33. The inevitable heat passing of the universe. There's been more than a few times I've laid awake thinking about it. I know I'll be long gone when the final star goes dark and cold forever, and humanity probably will be long gone as well. It's beautiful, in a way, but also a bit sad. Like a book closing for the final time, you know? Story 34. That if you spent $1 million a day beginning on the day that Jesus was born and continuing until the day you die, you still wouldn't have spent $1 trillion. Yet, right now, the US is over $20 trillion in debt, and neither party seems to want to do anything to stop it. That's the real national security risk. Story 35. Too many to count. The New Mexico terrorists eliminate one kid and starved 11 more are out on bond. Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy working for her for 20 years, and it's just being shrugged off as an oops. Some crates of aid sent to Puerto Rico for the hurricane last year are still sitting there, unused. Story 36. Logic cannot be proven consistent without making assumptions. Just think about that. If you want to know more, check out Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Story 37. One day you will wake up in some sort of physical and/or mental pain, and it will just keep getting worse until you die. Story 38. The supermassive volcano underneath Yellowstone is tens of thousands of years overdue. Last time it blew its lid, it threw roughly enough material into the air to cover the entire state of Texas in about 12 feet of debris. That's a mass extinction level event. Answer: a pretty weak one on the scale of extinction level events, though. While it would suck for the world, and particularly those of us in North America, it really isn't a major threat to modern civilization. Even most of the US would make it through, if at least a couple hundred miles away from the eruption. You look at the ashfall maps from past eruptions, and most of that 12 feet ex-Texas quantity of debris falls hundreds of feet deep in the immediate 50-100 mile radius of the eruption. Story 39. Nobody knows anything, and they keep pretending they know everything. Also, when you flush a toilet, there's a thin layer of bacteria that's aerosolized into the immediate vicinity. Enjoy. Story 40. The Fermi paradox, given the number of potential planets and stars in the universe, and the apparent relative abundance of water on many of them, or at least the suggestion of basic biochemical substance like methane, there should be a lot of life out there. And by extension, alien civilizations out there, yet all we hear from the cosmos is a deafening silence. Now, there might be pretty benign explanations like, we just happen to be in an empty part of space. Their and our messages simply haven't reached us them. But it is also possible there is a good reason all those alien civilizations are keeping quiet or are incapable of sending messages any longer. Story 41. If the universe was a sphere with diameter 1 or 100, it would be so large you would start to see repetition in 1 meter cube spaces, assuming similar density of matter in space to what we have seen thus far. Humans take up approximately 1 cubic meter edit. Alright, I suck at explaining things, so number file. But if you want me to give it a go, here is how I am interpreting what is discussed in the video. Let's say the universe is made up of two things, red atoms and blue atoms. We are going to ignore empty space in this example because we account for that by saying, assuming a similar matter density to what we have seen thus far. So to achieve a similar matter density, we have fill up some empty space. At first, we can fill each cubic meter space up uniquely, all red for example, or all red and 1 blue, but eventually we will run out of unique ways to fill a meter cubed. So then we start focusing on where within the meter cubed is the 1 blue atom relative to all the other atoms. Obviously, this takes even longer as the number of permutations based on placement and number of blue atoms in a sea of red ones is immense. But eventually, you will run out of unique ways to fill a cubic meter of space, taking placement and number of each atom into account. If the universe were 100 meters across, then there would be enough cubic meters to fill that you could do this for all elements that exist in our universe and still have room to spare, meaning you would have to start repeating exact copies of atom placement and number in meter cube sections, thus creating duplicates. That isn't even the trippy part. The trippy part is, that if memory is stored as a chemical balance in your brain, then these duplicates of you would have all your exact memories despite having never experienced any of it. Story 42. You can easily be replaced. No matter how skilled you think you are, how many degrees, years of experience and training you have, someone out here can replace you. It may take a little longer or shorter depending on what you do. Story 43. There are ancient superviruses and organisms that lay dormant in permafrost. The permafrost is melting, which will eventually expose these ancient viruses to humankind. Story 44. The permafrost in the Arctic is melting because of global warming and releasing vast quantities of methane into the atmosphere. Methane is 100 times more effective as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Story 45. Very few people contribute to the success and evolution of human race, guiding towards the better version of themselves through inventions, discoveries, and skills. Most people are just dead weight, and some working against. Answer. Counterpoint, and I know this is a ruthlessly utilitarian viewpoint. Many of the deadweight people make life better for the advancers of humankind. A gas station attendant doesn't really do much for the greater benefit of society, and it could even be argued that selling out to the fossil fuel industry is actually harmful to mankind. But without gas stations and the people who work there, the cancer researcher wouldn't be able to get to work in the morning. Story 46. The country with the most oil in the world is currently experiencing starvation and hyperinflation. The average wage is less than $1 per month. Story 47. If you factor in all the biological processes of organic decomposition and the organic compounds working back up the food chain, some small part of your face likely made up some small part of someone's jerk at one point. You ass face. Story 48. Horseshoe crabs have blue blood. It's like IRL unicorn blood the way it's valued, and is a problem for overharvestation. Story 49. That many educated people still can't see the difference between there and there, its, and many more. Story 50. Black holes travel at unfathomable speeds, and it's entirely possible for one to swallow our entire galaxy. Story 51. According to the CDC, lesbian women are about 8 more likely to be intimacy or physically assaulted by their partners than heterosexual women. That means per capita, women are more likely to be abusive partners than men. Story 52. Female hyenas have pseudopenises with low-hanging labias that resemble scrotums. In fact, it's nearly impossible to tell the difference between a young male and young female hyenas. The male hyena cannot copulate with the female unless she wants to. She then inverts her pseudopenis, like when you pull the arm out of the inside of a sweatshirt, and then they can fudge. This is horrifying to me. Story 53. Lizards don't have eyelids, so they lick their eyes to keep them moist. Horses also have side eyelids, and it's fudge creepy when they do it. Story 54. Right now, in the United States, in a hospital, a newborn boy is having part of his male body part cut off so he can look like daddy, and it's all legal and encouraged. Story 55. The budget to send the Curiosity rover to Mars is less than the worldwide military budget for 15 hours. Story 56. Over 90 of humans are dead. Humans will most likely never reach Proxima Centauri, our closest star, within 1,000 years. There's a chance that our solar system could be eaten by a black hole at any point in time. The universe will expand so far that no new stars will be born, thus our universe will be dark with no stars. Back when the Cuban nuclear crisis, the United States and the USSR were mere feet away from starting a nuclear war, possibly ending life on Earth as we know it only within a few minutes. Story 57. If you evenly redistributed Jeff Bezos' wealth across all Americans, it would be $476 per person. If you evenly redistributed the wealth of the entire one, it would be $126K per person. Story 58. We carry so much poop. Someone 5'2" can carry up to 25 libras of poop, so imagine if you are bigger than that. A good percentage of your body is probably actually full of shoot. Story 59. The media is treating their new report on priest intimacy abuse of children like they've just uncovered this pattern. 20 years ago, they ripped the curtain open and virtually did nothing back then. Story 60. There is one person who is 7 times as likely to eliminate you as anyone else, and that person is yourself. Story 61. If you are 50 and have a family with children and living in middle upper class in a one-world country, you have produced about 300 tons of waste that is sitting somewhere. Yep, those napkins, piazzas, plastic bags, and decorations of Toy Story are sitting somewhere, reminders of one of your son's birthday parties. And old TVs, iPods, car tires, old records, shoes, and even that stupid plastic instruments of Rock Band. Story 62. In the time it took you to read this, nearly 1 million animals, including fish, were eliminated for food worldwide. Story 63. Either the Big Crunch or continuous expansion of the universe will happen. If the universe just keeps expanding indefinitely, there will be a point with the universal heat passing and the universe ends. Time ends. Everything ends. The Big Crunch is pretty creepy too, but not quite as such. An eventual point in time where the forces of gravity pull everything toward the center again, which could result in another Big Bang. Another set of billions of years before life could develop, but any sort of trace of what came before being gone. Story 64. You have somewhere around 10 trillion cells in your body. Each cell holds a strand of DNA that's about 2 meters long and only a couple nanometers wide. Each cell has molecular robots that copy your DNA every time your cell multiplies. If you stretch all your DNA from end to end, it would be over 1 light year long. Story 65. You slowly get stupider as you age. And I'm not talking like just when you're old. Pretty much over the course of your entire adult life, you get dumber. Story 66. Let us assume a case let's consider 2. What does it mean? It means that when you divided this number in our case, 2, by 2, we get no remainder, it gets perfectly divided. Assume this number 2. You keep on dividing by 2, you will get no remainder. The quotient is always 0. Now there is only number which fits the bill, and that is 0. You divide 0 infinite times by 2, and that gives you 0. So, 2, 0. On N0. Story 67. While impossible to do, if you could somehow fold a standard sheet of paper in half 40 times, stood up, it'd reach past the moon, assumes 0.py in paper thickness. Story 68. No matter what you do, you can never escape your inevitable demise. You were thrown into this world without consent. You felt the air in your lungs, so calming the wind on your face, and soon nothing. Back to all things normal, and you don't exist again. Story 69. If you picture how a bat sees the world, you probably picture lots of black and white lines, and it looks a bit like an ultrasound. The reality is, it probably sees the world in much the same way you, and the objects around it will take up a physical space much the same as your furniture takes up a physical space to you. Story 70. Pincher bugs, or earwigs, can fudge fly, yo. I just learned this a week ago by seeing it with my own eyes and being like, nah, then Googling it and being terrified ever since. Story 71. The massive size of 52 factorial 52, or rather, the number of possible combinations for a deck of cards. Story 72. There are rapists, pedophiles, and murderers on this site who have not been apprehended. On the bright side, they will be, and justice will fudge them in the jerk. Story 73. Some of your favorite cash-based businesses are probably money laundering operations. Or maybe I've been watching too much TV. Story 74. All nuclear waste on the planet is currently in short-term storage. These facilities often consist of concrete containers inside warehouses, metal flasks standing in the open, or pools of water that will boil off without human intervention. Story 75. If your head is chopped off in a guillotine, you may remain conscious for 15 seconds after the fact. Story 76. I saw a chart once that was basically a grid of weeks in a human life, and you could pinpoint how many weeks you had lived and the ratio of